He thought the news would destroy me. He thought the silence on my end of the phone meant I had fallen apart. What he didn't know was that the moment he married his lover on our anniversary, a different version of me was born, one he could no longer control, one he could no longer hurt. The morning began like any other quiet, warm sunlight slipping between the curtains, the soft hum of the city beyond the window, and me preparing myself to step into a day that carried memories heavy enough to bend the heart. April 19th, the date that once felt carved into my soul. Our anniversary. 5 years of promises, fights, reconciliations, plans, dreams, and blind devotion. For a moment, I let myself smile at the memory of how he used to hold my hand on this day, how he would wake me with breakfast, and whisper how lucky he felt. I didn't know those whispers were rehearsed lies said to both me and her. My phone buzzed. I reached for it expecting a message. Maybe an old photo with a half-hearted caption. Maybe even guilt disguised as nostalgia. Instead, when the screen lit up, something inside me shifted quick, sharp, and breaking. A wedding invitation. Not ours. His. With her. The date? April 19th. My anniversary. Their wedding. The gold letters blurred and sharpened as I read them again and again, unable to breathe. It wasn't shock. It was something deeper, something darker, as if my chest had caved in and left nothing but the echo of betrayal. My hand trembled, and for a second, the phone slipped. I caught it with shaking fingers, but the damage was already done. A cold numbness spread from my fingertips to my ribs. I sank onto the couch, my legs weak, my mind spiraling through every moment of the past few months, every late night, every vague explanation. Every time he said trust me, I thought he was just tired. I thought work was the problem. I thought we were still building something. He wasn't building anything with me. He was planning a wedding with her. My phone vibrated again. His name glowed on the screen. My heart stopped, then hammered painfully as I answered, but the world felt too quiet, too small for the weight of what I was holding. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He didn't even say my name. He just whispered, I hope you understand someday. Understand? Understand how he had slowly turned me into a placeholder while he built a future with someone else. Understand that he chose her and used our anniversary the day he promised forever to humiliate me. Understand that he expected me to cry, beg, crumble? I said nothing. Silence was my answer, and it terrified him. I heard the fear in the breathing on the other end. But I couldn't speak. My throat burned. My vision blurred. My thoughts refused to form words. I ended the call without a sound, and in that moment I could feel the last thread between us snap, not gently, not quietly, but like something tearing from the inside. I didn't scream or throw things. My pain didn't erupt outward. It sank inward like a stone, dropped into deep water. That was somehow worse. It made the room feel hollow. Like I was living inside a version of myself that didn't fit anymore. Hours passed without my noticing. The sun changed angles, the shadows shifted, and I still sat there holding the phone as if it were a piece of evidence from a crime scene. Maybe it was. A crime of the heart. But slowly, the numbness changed. It hardened, and something inside me, something I had kept small for years, rose like a quiet flame. I wiped my tears. I stood up. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen, but beneath the redness there was something new. A sharpness, a strength, a refusal. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had underestimated me. He thought the heartbreak would swallow me whole. He didn't know I still had myself, and that was enough to rebuild from. That night, I needed air. I needed space that didn't smell like memories or broken promises. My best friend worked at a hotel downtown, so I walked there just to feel like I wasn't suffocating in my own home. I ended up behind the building near the quiet service alley, hugging my knees, trying to piece together a heart that felt like it had been dropped from a rooftop. My tears wouldn't stop. They rolled slowly, silently, without sobs, just steady grief leaking from a wound too deep to describe. That's when I heard footsteps. Soft, slow, hesitant. I didn't look up at first. Everyone knew I needed space when I cried. But these footsteps didn't belong to my friend. They were firmer, steadier, almost commanding. When I finally lifted my head, the last person I expected to see was standing there. His uncle. Not just any uncle. The uncle. The one who built the family's empire. The man everyone respected. The man my ex feared disappointing more than anyone else. He wasn't dressed like someone who belonged in a quiet alley behind a hotel. His presence felt out of place, the tailored suit, the calm posture, the quiet power he carried like a shadow. But his eyes softened the moment they met mine. "I didn't expect to find you here," he said gently. I quickly wiped my face, embarrassed, trying to hide the storm he had walked into. But he didn't look away. He didn't pretend not to see my pain. He didn't offer pity. He offered presence. "Whoever made you cry," he said in a voice low enough to settle the chaos inside me, "does not deserve to stand in your memories." My breath caught. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them, as if he already knew. As if he, too, carried wounds that time hadn't fully healed. We talked. Not like strangers, not like people connected by a man who had broken me, but like two souls who understood grief differently, deeply. I told him everything. He listened, really listened. Not once did he say move on or you deserve better or forget him. He didn't feed me cliches. He held space for me to pour out years of love, months of confusion, days of heartbreak. And for the first time since the invitation arrived, I didn't feel alone. When he finally stood to leave, he offered me his hand. I took it, and the warmth of it didn't fix my heart, but it steadied it enough for me to breathe again. He didn't know that meeting me that night would change everything. I didn't know that he would become the reason I would walk into a wedding I was never meant to attend. But in that moment, all I knew was this. I wasn't breaking. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone he could never hurt again. And fate, in its strange, twisted mercy, had just begun weaving a story neither of us could imagine. Everyone expected me to hide from his wedding. Instead, I walked into the hall glowing, because the man walking beside me wasn't just anyone. It was the man who could destroy every illusion my ex had ever lived on, his uncle. And when their eyes met, the entire room froze. In the days leading toward the wedding, the world felt strangely divided. Half of it echoing with pity and whispers about my heartbreak, the other half eerily quiet, as if holding its breath, waiting to see whether I would collapse the way everyone predicted. People love tragedy. They love stories where the woman breaks, where she disappears quietly, where she becomes nothing but a memory of someone who once loved too hard. I could feel their expectations when they saw me in the market, at the bus stop, even at the bakery I went to every morning. They lowered their voices, but not enough for me not to hear. "Poor girl," someone whispered once. "She must be destroyed," another replied. "She won't show her face at that wedding." Maybe once, long ago, I would have done exactly what they expected, hidden, swallowed the humiliation, waited for time to dull the edges. But something had changed the night I cried behind the hotel. The softness in his uncle's voice, the weight of his concern, the way he listened without trying to fix me, it had all planted a seed of strength inside me, something quiet yet powerful. It reminded me that I still had worth even if one man failed to see it. His uncle checked on me often after that night. Not too much, not too little, just enough for me to feel seen, understood. We talked about everything except the wedding. He never asked if I wanted revenge. He never painted himself as a hero. He simply offered presence, calm conversations, gentle silences. I found myself opening up to him not because he asked, but because he gave me space to breathe in a world that had suddenly tightened around me. The night before the wedding, he invited me to his home. I hesitated before going, unsure if I had the strength to speak about the next day. But he didn't mention the wedding at all. Instead, we talked about books, travel, work, and little things like the sound of rain or the smell of old libraries. And when the conversation finally slowed, he leaned back in his chair, studying me with eyes that saw more than they revealed. "Do you want to go tomorrow?" he asked. I felt my heart jerk. "To the wedding? Yes." I let out a breath that felt like it carried all the confusion in my soul. "Wouldn't that be humiliating?" "Only if you walk in feeling humiliated," he said. "But if you walk in knowing who you are, no one can touch you." I didn't answer for a while. The idea of walking into that place, the place where he would marry the woman he cheated with on the date that was supposed to be ours, it felt like willingly reopening a wound. But another part of me, a quieter but braver part, wondered if maybe, just maybe, facing it would set me free. "You won't be alone," he added softly. Something in me steadied. A small flame rose where there had only been ashes. "I'll go," I whispered. He nodded, as if he already knew what my answer would be. The next day came too quickly. I spent the morning awake, staring at my reflection as sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor. I didn't want to look broken. I didn't want to look angry. I wanted to look like myself. Or maybe like the version of myself I was slowly becoming. So I chose a pale gold dress, simple yet striking. It caught the light with every small movement, not loudly but confidently. My hair fell softly around my shoulders, and my makeup was minimal, highlighting the calm strength in my eyes. When I stepped outside and saw his uncle waiting by the car, the way he looked at me made something inside me lift its head. Not in a romantic way, not yet, not then, but in a way that said he saw the woman beneath the scars, the woman who deserved more than the pain she had carried. You look, he paused, searching for the right word, like you finally remember your worth. I didn't know how to answer, so I just smiled and took his offered arm. The drive to the wedding hall felt unreal. My heart wasn't racing, it was steady, quiet, almost meditative. The closer we got, the more I felt that maybe closure wasn't something that happened to you. It was something you walked toward with your head held high. When we arrived, the guests were already gathered, their expensive outfits shimmering under the grand chandeliers. People turned when we entered, first out of curiosity, then out of disbelief, and finally out of shock. I could feel the whispers ripple through the hall like a slow wave. Is that her? Why is she here, and with him? No, it can't be his uncle. I kept my chin high, holding on to the warmth of the arm I was linked with. Then it happened. My ex turned. The moment his eyes landed on me, and then on the man beside me, his expression collapsed. He froze in place, color draining from his face, as if the world had just tilted beneath him. His bride, standing next to him in her glittering gown, followed his gaze and stiffened, her smile faltering. He didn't move toward me. He didn't speak. He just stared wide-eyed, shocked, angry, confused, regretful. All the emotions he expected me to feel were written across his face instead. The room fell into a hush, so complete, it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Even the music faded, as if embarrassed to keep playing. I took a slow step forward, then another. His uncle didn't tighten his grip, or try to shield me. He simply walked beside me with the same calm dignity he always carried. When we reached my ex, I stopped. The tension around us was thick enough to touch. Congratulations, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I sounded like someone who had already healed past him. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at his uncle, then at me, then at the guests, who were watching with a mixture of shock and awe. He had expected to marry her effortlessly, proudly, as if his betrayal came without consequence. He hadn't expected me to show up at all, much less with the one person he feared disappointing most. His uncle's voice broke the silence. You made your choices, he said calmly. Now accept them. That was the moment my ex understood the truth. He had lost more than my love. He had lost my respect, my presence, my future, and the support of the one man he admired most. And standing there, in a hall filled with whispers and shattered illusions, I realized something too. I hadn't come to hurt him. I hadn't come to take revenge. I had come to reclaim myself. And I had succeeded. As we turned to leave, I felt lighter, freer, stronger. Not because of who stood beside me, but because I had walked through the fire and emerged whole. This wasn't the ending of our story. It was the beginning of mine.